everyone, so I have Miss Cordelia here with me today, and I am going to be sharing kind of different parts of my nursery today, but for kind of just the talking parts, I wanted to change Cordelia into something cute. So I am going to be putting her into this little bunny outfit. It actually came with the twins, but I think it's just so cute that I wanted to put it on someone. And then I'm also thinking about doing the bow and the socks. I'm not completely sure on these yet, but I figured I'd see how they look as we go. But yeah, so today I'm going to be talking about 5 different ways that you can display your dolls, because I feel like that is a really fun part about getting a new doll. It's kind of deciding, like, where am I going to display this new doll? And I feel like that was one of the biggest things, is I always had to have a special place figured out before the doll came, so that it wasn't like a scramble to figure out where they were going to kind of reside in my nursery. And so you know, and sometimes when they get there, the idea that you had planned out doesn't always work, but I like having a place open for them, if that makes sense. But I think, you know, before I start talking about the 5 different places, I sort of want to talk about, you know, kind of some things to keep in mind when you're trying to decide where to display your doll. And, you know, this video is going to be a little bit of a suggestion for new collectors, but also kind of a conversation for seasoned collectors who have had a lot of trial and error displaying their dolls. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it now that I've kind of done a long intro. So the first thing that I kind of think about when I am going to display a doll is kind of where are my like windows and vents. I don't really like keeping dolls in long periods of times by the window, because on like weekends I like to have the windows open all day, and sometimes I like to have them open during weekdays too when I'm gone, so that my plants can get a little bit more sun. And I know that it is unlikely and it would require a lot of sunlight, but with the direct sunlight coming through the window, it can start to fade or yellow your dolls. And so I just like to play it a little bit extra safe, and if I have the window open, cover them up if they're by the window, or just move them to a different spot. And then with both windows and vents in common is you get a little bit more dust, especially since I live in an older house. Our windows aren't sealed perfectly. And so I noticed, like, especially when we had a lot of fires going on in the mountains, there would be like kind of a film of this like black ash that got through the windows and like got on my windowsills and some of the plants. And I wouldn't really want that on my doll. I mean, you can always clean that off, but still not preferable. And same thing, if you have an old house, sometimes the vents can kind of kick up more dust and allergens. And that might not be, you know, the thing that you want on your doll. The next thing that I sometimes consider, I mean, this one isn't like a super important thing for me, but I do kind of think about where the lighting is, like where my top lighting is, because based on where in my room the dolls are placed, I've noticed that they look slightly different. So my dolls in the crib always look like more bright and beautiful because the light, my fan is like right near the crib. Whereas like if I have them in the kind of near the bookshelf, which is a little bit further away from the light, they just look more dark and kind of shadowy, which can make a kit look different if like the shadows are on it, you know, in kind of a funky way. Sometimes it can change how you feel about the kit. So I do kind of play around in that sense and kind of figure out like what doll looks good in this lighting, what doll looks better in that lighting, so that when I come into my nursery, which is also technically my room, but when I come and see the dolls, you know, before I leave for work or when I get back from work, they're kind of displayed in a way that looks kind of exciting and enticing to me, I guess. The next thing that I kind of think about is pets. Right now my dogs are all pretty like elderly and don't really care much about getting into the dolls. However, we are kind of considering getting a cat when we move out, and so I'm going to really have to think about, you know, where should I store my silicones so that they're safe, and where's like a safe place to display them. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit more with like each one that I go over. And then the next thing that I think about is also realism. You know, certain places that you can kind of display your dolls is going to look more realistic than others. I prefer for my dolls to look a little bit more, you know, in a more realistic area. But sometimes that's just not always, you know, possible with the space that you have. And so you kind of just got to play with it. But first I'm going to kind of talk about the one that I personally don't do, but I have seen done really, really well, is having your dolls on shelves. So obviously that's not the most realistic option because you wouldn't have a baby on a shelf. However, for people who have a large doll collection, it does make it so that they can see each of their dolls. And I'll kind of insert like a few good examples that I've seen, so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. But yeah, if you have a smaller space and you have a lot of dolls, I think this is a really great way to kind of be able to equally, you know, display everyone. And you can kind of have the shelf in a place with good lighting and in a good area in the room. Now on to the ones that I do have. Alright, so I'm going to be using Winona as kind of my model for all of these displays or display options that I have, just so that you could see her in the different lightings and how each one positions her. But the first option is a bouncy seat or swing. Some really good benefits of the bouncy seat or swing is they're pretty inexpensive. You can find most of them at consignment shops for less than $30. And there's so many different types and shapes, colors, sizes, styles. So you could totally find something that matches what you like or your nursery theme, which is pretty cool. I also like how they have different features for like role play videos. So like this one, it not only bounces, but it also plays music. And then it has like a special heartbeat feature, which is pretty cool. The one downfall of the bouncy seat or swing is they are pretty darn close to the ground. So if you have animals that you do not trust with your dolls, either make sure that they always stay out of the room where you have your dolls, or you need something up higher. I have heard horror stories of dogs, cats, birds, hamsters getting to dolls that are in a low position. So just something to think about. So the next option is a changing table. Some of the benefits of this one is it is a lot higher up, which is nice. So if you do have animals that stay on the ground, then this one's a good one. And some changing tables give the doll fairly good support. This is kind of like a baby nest on top of essentially like a bookshelf. And so this is a little bit different than your traditional changing table. But there are definitely some fun things that you can do with a changing table, little displays with diapers and powder and wipes, things like that. The one downfall, in my opinion, of this one is it might not be the most supportive position. A lot of changing tables kind of just leave your doll flat and like blah all over the place. And also, it wouldn't be super realistic to have a real baby that is just left up in a changing table. And so I feel like in that case, like the bouncy seat or crib might be more realistic because you might leave a baby in there for a little bit more of an extended period. One thing that I personally like about this position in my nursery is it gives them fairly good lighting. Maybe if you could tell it's starting to go out of focus. But anyway, all right, we'll go on to the next option. So the next option is a crib or bassinet. And my favorite part about having a doll displayed in a crib or a bassinet is they look very realistic, especially if they're an asleep baby, because you would put a real baby in a crib when they went to sleep or in a bassinet. The other thing that I like about having a crib or a bassinet is they can also be a relatively cheap option, because there's a lot of DIY baby bassinets, like using, you know, a laundry basket with some blankets on top of like a table. That was how I had my very first quote-unquote bassinet for my dolls, and you can also kind of decorate it fun, which is cool. So you can always sort of add fun accessories or sheets or things like that to match your theme. Kind of the downfalls of a crib is a lot of times if you just set a doll in a crib or a bassinet, they kind of fall funny. And so for dolls, a lot of times you do need like positioning pillows, and I'll show you guys how I sort of made this one in here with just some old unused blankets, because it's pretty easy. And if you guys kind of want to see what a doll looks like without those, is, you know, she still looks adorable over here, but Lulia, it looks kind of funky flat. And the nice thing about this one too is it's elevated, and so it's a little bit more protected from pets and children and things like that. And yeah, I think that's all I had to say about the crib. Oh, the one other downfall is it is pretty big. Most of my nursery actually is just the crib, and so it can store a lot of babies, but it is pretty bulky. Alright, so the final option that I have for you guys is having your doll either on a like a nursing pillow or a baby nest on your bed or on a chair. The nice thing about having your doll on your bed or a chair that you go to often is the doll, you'll interact with it more. Like a lot of times if I have a new doll, I'll kind of hold them in the morning and then make my bed and place them on there so that it's something to look forward to, something exciting to come home to, because they're just right there. And it's a space that you kind of interact with naturally often. So that's good. Also, the positioning pillows are fairly inexpensive. There are definitely designer ones that are quite expensive, but you can get like a boppy from Walmart for pretty cheap, or you could even make one. They're pretty simple to make. I even have a tutorial on how to make a baby nest on my Instagram story if you guys want to check that out. The downfall is you're constantly having to move the doll if they're on the bed. Because they're just going to be in the way, and I feel like it would be really hard to sleep in the bed with the doll in case you roll over and crush the doll or the doll falls out of the bed. I'd just be worried about that. Also, it's not a very realistic position because you wouldn't just leave a baby, you know, on your bed for a long period of time. I'd also be worried about animals that enjoy your bed because they're going to be there. And if the doll's there as well, you know, you always run the risk of the animal possibly accidentally damaging the doll. So it's not my favorite place to have them, but it is kind of nice when you're interacting with them. But anyway. Alright, you guys, so now I have Miss Cordelia pretty much all dressed, and I'm glad that I got some time to kind of play with her. Whenever I get a new doll, I just get like so excited about that doll, and then I kind of forget about the others. But she's just so precious. I really do just adore this kit. And the headband is cute. The socks are way too big. They look goofy. But anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And if you guys have any video suggestions or anything, please leave them in the comments for me. Also, I want to hear where you guys display your dolls and what type of things that you think are super important when you are finding a place to display them. Alright everyone, see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!